Well, hello out there. Thank you for joining Love at First Laugh, the Green Room edition live. We are live today with the fabulous Daniel Knauf, who is the creator of Carnivàle on HBO and was also a writer and showrunner on The Blacklist on NBC. Yay! Give him a hand, you
Yeah.
guys. So, hi, Daniel. You're like a regular on this podcast now.
Well, I am. It only takes two appearances to become a regular. That's like,
I think this is your third one because you were on in 2021, I believe.
oh, okay. So it's three times as a charm. I
It
gotcha.
is.
So, okay. It's like, it takes me, I don't know how many times I'd have to go into a bar or a restaurant to be a regular, but this is a very accommodating, hospitable space you've created here, Grace.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you. Well, you were a regular on the second time, so it was like 2 months ago. But today we're here to talk about your passion project, your new project that you're just been working super hard on it. And I've read it and it's amazing. It's called Gingerland and it's for adults. It's a kid story, but it's for adults. And I'm like, why should I read a kid story? I was hooked. I just read it real quick. It was great. It was amazing. So first of all, so the audience doesn't know what it's about. What is I can't talk. Gingerland about? What is it about?
well, before I jump into that, I'll say yes, it can be enjoyed by adults, kind of like a Bugs Bunny cartoon can be
Yeah.
enjoyed by adults. It's there's stuff for grown-ups where they'll catch things and take some get a laugh out of it or some joy from it. And then there's other things, but most of the book is very comprehensible, I think, to any kid over 7 or 8 years old. I think it would need to be, the kid, you wouldn't, this isn't a book you'd just hand a child and say, here, read this, unless they were 12 or 13 years old. But they certainly could have the book read to them, which is what the book is designed to be, in just the way it's written, and it's lyrical. And so it really is designed to be read aloud. And my whole goal here is to create sort of a new Christmas tradition for families to sit down and just read this story, in the nights leading up to Christmas. And so what's it about? It's about lots of things. I mean, ostensibly, it's basically about these three kids, ginger kids. They're gingerbread cookie kids.
Yes.
And they live in this place called Gingerland, and it's like this perfect Christmas winter wonderland. Everything in there is edible. There's hundreds of other little ginger people there, and they all live in the Gingerland Mountain House, which is this sort of huge gingerbread, structure.
Yeah.
And it's like a perfect little world. And there's our protagonist really is Holly, and then her brother Nicholas, and her baby sister baby Jem, and they go on a hike to the farthest hill, and they go to a gazebo at the top of the hill, and baby Jem falls through the butterbrickle floor, and in trying to rescue her, they all end up sort of being expelled from Gingerland. They find themselves in a very dark place, and then they crawl through a lot of packing material, and they find themselves outside. And what they find outside is basically a replica of the Gingerland Mountain House, only much, much, much bigger. And they soon discover that their entire world is just a holiday diorama under glass in the lobby of this Adirondack hotel. And so the rest of the story is really about them trying to find their way back home. and they learn lessons and they make friends, human friends, gingerbread friends, in pursuing that goal. So that's the plot. I mean, the theme, and I don't think of theme when I write. I think it's a big mistake, because what happens is it distorts the narrative process. You start, it's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to, send a message. Well, as Jack Warner once said, call Western Union. My job as a writer is to create an engaging story that pulls people along, and that, invests them in all the characters, and makes them laugh and cry, and does all the things this well-crafted story is supposed to do. It isn't until after I'm done that I really even think. I go, okay, I know what I wrote, but what did I really write?
Yeah. I actually like that process better. I wrote my one-woman show that way, where I just wrote, and then I found like what the through line was by just writing it. I didn't say I'm going to write about this. It was just, it came out. So I feel like that's what you did. And what is the theme though?
Well, your job, is to entertain people. That's
Right.
the number one job. If you don't do that, you failed. And you can have, theme can be something very simple, like, good guys win. It could be,
yes,
it's like the theme of every like network procedural is that, just surrender, or even doctor shows, especially doctor shows, is surrender to authority and everything will be okay.
Yes.
But if you don't, then you're in for some trouble.
Yeah.
Sleep. Sleep. So, most that's the theme of most network shows.
Yeah.
I've written them. I know.
Yeah.
So the theme, it wasn't until afterwards that I thought, okay, this thing's resonating on a fairly high level, and it's resonating in a very a way that's very connected to our current society, and it's similar to, say, A Christmas Carol. Although I don't want to compare myself to Dickens, but when he wrote A Christmas Carol, that was very connected to, Victorian England, and Christmas had kind of fallen out the window, and people were being treated very shoddily, especially the poor, and it worked on that level. People were starving for that kind of a story. This one is where, when I sat down, I looked, okay, 3 kids in a completely curated world. Fall out into the real world, and suddenly in the real world they grow, they have chance, they adapt, they have to have courage, they demonstrate love and kindness, and there's like I said, there's spiritual growth for them in that world. And even when they get back to it, Holly certainly isn't going to see Gingerland as the same thing as it was before she fell out. And I realized, I'm writing about the internet. And
really,
what I realized is, okay, so we sit there and we curate our social networks, and we block or mute all the people who we find troublesome or we don't agree with.
Right.
And so we create this sort of false world that's conflict free. And that's not a world where you can grow in. And it's that friction that we find when we're confronted by obstacles, whether those are human obstacles or just not being able to pay the bills this month, or whatever it is. That's where growth happens. That's where real life happens. You can't smell a flower on the internet.
Right.
And so it was really just like, the other thing about the internet is we may curate our own world, but there's big giant world outside of it.
Right.
And in that world, there are people that do not mean us well. And they're watching us inside our bubble, and they're seeing what we buy. They're seeing what we click on. They're seeing who our friends are. They're applying algorithms to it and AI at this point, and building models in order to exploit us. But really, that is something that if you're in the bubble, you're not aware of it. It's not until Holly and Nicholas and baby Jem leave the bubble that they realize, oh my God, there's people out here that are bad people, and they're really all about, they're basically about destroying our world. And so part of their mission becomes really acquiring allies in order to save their world. And so I guess the big message, like I said, I didn't have this in mind when I wrote it, but it's there, I think, is spend a little time in the real world, and don't spend too much time in this bubble, under glass, so to speak. So
yeah. And you know what, as I was reading it, this was my take on it, or perception. It's almost like different universes. And when you're speaking about like the internet and the outside world, it seems like it's two different universes. Right? Did you intend to write about like quantum physics, alternative universes kind of thing, or did it just come out?
No, I think that it was just, okay, well, they think this is their world, and then they find out, oh, our world is just a very small part of a much bigger world. And I look at, there's many things. I spend more time than I should on the internet, and I'm guilty as charged. But it's really only when you aren't on the internet where real spiritual growth is possible.
100%, yes.
And it's that, what our urge when we make friends on the internet is, I want to meet this person in real life. And so there's something quantifiable about, real life. There's a quantifiable quality to in real life that exists. And so that's, where Holly and her brother and her sister end up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are the main characters, and are they archetypes of anything, or did you just come up with them with no archetypes in mind?
Well, first of all, Gingerland was really weird. I had been thinking, for 20 years, ever since my friend Tracy Gourmet, his dad was Mel Gourmet, and he wrote the Christmas thing, chestnuts roasting on an open fire. And it's like, that is this thing that's embedded in the culture. And it made a huge splash, and it's been recorded by many artists, and it's been listened to by millions of people. And I always thought, wow, I want to do something about Christmas. But it was really hard because so many people have done stuff with Christmas, and to where it's a patch of ground that's kind of bleached out, and now it's just, okay, we're going to do Psycho Santa movies, or we're going to do perverted elf movies, or whatever people, we're gonna deconstruct Christmas. And my goal was, no, I don't want to do that. I want to write a real heartfelt story that's not this treacly Hallmark stuff. The last really good Christmas story was the movie, I guess, Christmas Story, about the little boy and his BB gun, and that's 40 years ago. So I thought, I think the world's starving for something that is celebrating the holidays, celebrating generosity, celebrating kindness, and giving, and all the things that, I know that I kind of, think of at Christmas time. It's just, oh, this is the time when we're happy, and we're just happy because we're going to be, giving presents to all our friends, and maybe, giving to charity or volunteering somewhere. And it's that, it's that sort of warm feeling that, it's been sort of squashed and commercialized out of business.
Right.
And I just wanted to sort of celebrate that and sort of, and so the story came to me, and it came to me like all at once, and stories never come to me all at once. And so I didn't trust it. And so,
oh, that's so interesting. Why did you trust it?
It was just like, I got this idea,
Yeah.
and I told my wife, and I said, okay. And I just told her the story from beginning to end. And, and it was more or less the story that I ended up writing. But, I kept going, no, somebody has to have done this. Then are there any books where gingerbread people are the protagonists? And it's like,
right.
No, he has a supporting role in Shrek, I guess. But, this is too good. It's kind of like finding a $20 bill on the sidewalk, and so I tried to break out of it. I tried alternatives. I started doing alternatives, and they just didn't work. They went nowhere. So it took me about a year to write the book, and it took me a lot of time to find the correct tone. At first, I started it as like a children's book, very simple, very, very simple words and verbiage, and then I realized I tried to break out of that very quickly, and so then it became, I began to sort of draw on my love for, Roald Dahl, and, that those books are written with a fairly high degree of sophistication as far as language goes, and fairly complex characters as well. And, my bad guys, were, really fun. And I don't think I've seen these bad guys before ever, but they were very much of a time. And I think it's sort of set in the like 50s kind of,
Right. Yeah. And you have some amazing illustrations, by the way.
Yeah, that was another thing is I knew I needed to get a good illustrator. And so what I did was I decided to publish it as a serial and try to build a community around it on Substack. And that seems to be, growing. It's a slow thing to get subscribers and so forth. But especially when, it wasn't Christmas time. I'm doing this in, March,
Right.
But people are kind of like catching on now, and I'm getting some people signing up. And the first 14 chapters are free, and there's a paywall if you want to read the rest of the book. And if you are a paid subscriber, as soon as because I get, I get money if I have a paid subscriber, I get funds. I'll be using those funds to publish a very, very nice hardbound edition of the book, and everybody who signs up gets a copy of the book. To be signed and numbered. And I knew I needed a really good illustrator, and my community weighed in. It was like I said, look, I'm having trouble finding somebody, and I got suggestions, and people volunteered. I could do it, or I know somebody who can do it, and so they really, it was sort of like became a group of collaborators, and it's kind of fantastic. And I found Zelda Devon, and she's a very well established illustrator. And I told her what I wanted. And I said, I want the illustrations to look like I want this book to feel like a classic. I want them to look like this book was written in like 1953. And I wrote it through a pseudonymous, a fake author named P.J. Hummel, and he died early. He just wrote this one book, and so I said I want something to look classic, and I named people. Yeah, I named a lot of illustrators. Johnny Gruel and Arthur Rackham, and those were people who were sort of in. She loved all those as well. She knew the work. She'd been influenced by the work, and she said, "Okay, here's what She said, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm turning my computer off and I'm busting out my paints." And so they're all hand painted. They're not created in Illustrator. She hand painted these suckers.
Wow.
And they're just beautiful. And so it's, there's quite a few illustrations, and then, some pen and ink drawings of the characters. And
yes, I love those.
And then there's and so right now I'm sort of designing the book to get it ready for printing if
Nice.
that ever happens. But right now it's exclusively available through Substack, and you can read it off a tablet to your kids if you need to.
Nice.
But I hope to have a hardbound copy available sometime in 2024.
Excellent. That's great. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to get my copy.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You were talking about the internet earlier, right? How we have the world of the internet and then the outside world. Do you feel that the internet has desensitized us? And the reason you wrote the story is you wanted to show us more human emotions, like positive human emotions.
I think that we're all a little bit schizophrenic. You meet people who are, in that regard, I just had I had a really unpleasant conversation with a couple of people who were just very rude and strident. And I suspect that if I met them in real life, they're probably really nice people. And so often when people are on the internet, it's sort of, but that's not an unusual phenomenon. People can be very different personalities behind the wheel of a car than they are standing in line at Starbucks. They wouldn't dream of cutting into the line at Starbucks, but it's no problem cutting you off. So it's just a psychological sort of a strange dissociation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a different psychological environment, and not necessarily a bad one. I wouldn't advocate. I'm not advocating canceling the internet.
Oh, of course not.
But I can't help but say that it used to be if somebody had an ugly opinion or an ugly thing to say, it was your Uncle Bob, and you only saw him once a year, and nobody listened to him, and even his neighbors, like, oh, that guy's but we've given Uncle Bob a megaphone, and so now Uncle Bob has worldwide distribution.
Yes.
And so every stupid person with something ugly to say is saying it at full volume, and that's it. It's the signal to noise aspect of the internet that's disturbing to me. And we're seeing it right now with the current events, and we see it all the time,
Yes.
So, yeah, but kind of goes with the territory, I guess.
Absolutely.
But my goal is just, I want to write a lovely Christmas story, and and I'm really proud of having. I think I pulled it off. So.
Oh yeah, it's great. Like I said, I was like a kid story.
Well, there's that one story. There's 4 parts to the story, and the second part is sort of an origin story that can stand on its own as a Christmas story, and it's just about a little girl who's dying, and her father built Gingerland. He was a hotelier, and he commissioned Gingerland from his French chef, and the whole kitchen staff adored this girl. They put their hearts and souls into creating it, but she's saying there's something missing, and they keep correcting it, fixing it, and then they finally unveil it, she still knows there's something missing, and she realized, oh my God, there's no people in there. People are important, and
Yes.
and so she's presented with sort of a Christmas star, and she makes a wish, and the next morning when they all wake up, not only is Gingerland now populated with a whole bunch of little ginger men, and women and children, but the girl is miraculously healed, and it's a very, I mean, those are my favorite chapters in the book, I think.
Yeah, I love that one. That was very it had a lot of heart. I really like it.
That's where I think it's further. That's kind of a grown-up thing, but again, I think kids would get it.
Totally. 100%. Yes. How long did it take you to write?
About a year.
A year? Okay.
About a year, yeah. And only if I just sat down and wrote the thing the way it wouldn't have taken me much time at all. But I kept writing myself down blind alleys. I said, this can't be right. And it turned out it was right. And
because it came to you like in one shot and you didn't trust the process.
I kind of did, but I think that was part of it. There were elements of it that didn't occur to me until I was into the writing. But more or less, it was everything. I mean, the bad guys certainly had occurred to me in the original concept, and they're just sort of horrible people, you know. And then there's Bertram, you know, he's the janitor, you know, handyman, and
yes,
and scary chapter in it where they sort of terrify Bertram.
And there's also poetry in between. I love that. You're very poetic.
There's lyrics. I mean, there's songs in it. And again, I mean, I tore that page out of Roald Dahl's. You know, I always loved when he'd drop into like rhyming verse inside his stories. They're very funny. And there's one that's like a bona fide just lyrics to a Christmas song. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I suppose I could find somebody who wants to write music for it, but and it's a genuine Christmas carol. It's, you know, a Gingerland Christmas, but there's other ones where it's like the bad guys are talking to each other and they drop into verse, and it's really fun stuff to write. You know,
I love it. So there's much more to Gingerland than meets the eye. And what is the story really about?
I am the guy who created Carnivàle. So many of you are interested in reading a Christmas story written by a lunatic.
You know, I think writers we are a little bit I don't know, like it's crazy because how do the scenes and everything comes to you, like people talking in your head, right? So I think we are a little bit lunatic.
Well, yeah, I mean, you absolutely you're the very definition of insanity. I mean, you're hearing people that aren't there, you're seeing that aren't there.
I know.
You're even doing it when you're not writing. You're thinking about it. You're eating lunch with a friend, and suddenly you just go into a fugue state, and you've just figured out a problem you had in your narrative or something, and you know, or you think up something, or you're laughing at jokes nobody can hear. I mean, come on, it's crazy pants.
Yeah, we all don't show that side, but yeah, no, yeah, like
we're high maintenance. I mean, as far as relationships go, my wife is a saint, you know.
Right? Is it? It's very hard for an artist to find somebody who would understand them and. Like not the insanity, but I think we're a little bit different.
No, she doesn't understand me. She
doesn't understand.
She tolerates me, which is as much as I can expect in a relationship.
That is true.
I mean, I may seem like a really nice guy talking to you, but I'm crazy as the day is long. You know.
Oh, that's so funny. How are you crazy? Like when
I get really upset about things that are just dumb.
Oh, really? Like what? Like little silly, like everyday things? Or?
my daughters, it's like there's these rules, weirdo Dan rules in the house. And like one of the things is the daughter one says to daughter two, I really love you, Vale. I love you too, Vale. And I'll go, don't ever speak about love in a sarcastic manner because it's the most important thing there is. Don't turn it into a joke and don't weaponize it. I mean, now that's just sort of crazy. It's
not crazy. It makes sense, actually. To me, it makes sense because it is.
It's like I had, my family had weird, like you can't say shut up in this house. That is like saying go fuck yourself. And so anyway, there goes the family audience. That's
hilarious. Yeah, right.
Can you bleep me out? Just bleep it. Yeah.
It's all good. I don't care. Listen, I don't care anymore. So now it's a time for Q&A. If you guys have any questions for Daniel. Anybody want to?
It is time to stump the writer.
Stump the writer.
Yes. I know Dave always has the best questions. I'm putting him on the spot, but.
Oh, yeah. I got plenty of questions, but.
Go for it.
Is it okay to go? Okay.
Go for it, man.
Okay. So Daniel, who was your biggest inspiration in terms of your desire to become a writer? And please describe the process of finding the right director for your project. Or projects, I should say.
Directors?
Yeah, like what's the process of like going out to finding the right director for your projects?
Well, I mean, first that's two questions really.
Yeah.
My lots of people, they'll say, they'll usually say, ask a writer who are your inspirations, and they'll kick out a lot of things like Hemingway. Steinbeck, and of course they were inspirations to me, but they weren't foundational. They didn't make me want to be a writer. I think most of the writers that really, where I went, wow, first of all, it's like, I mean, are the writers we read when we're little kids? I mean, really, it's like Dr. Seuss is probably a bigger influence on more writers than any one of them would care to admit. The books we read as children and as adolescents, I remember reading Vonnegut when I was young, in the eighth or ninth grade, and they had a huge influence on me, and Ray Bradbury had a huge influence on me, and Harlan Ellison, and Richard Matheson, and then later, and Mark Twain, but later you're revisiting some of those authors, and they're having an even deeper impact on you. I think that what made me want to be a storyteller was the same thing that makes somebody want to be a plumber or something. I was just good at it. I mean, I was the kid in my little group of kids that would go see a movie, and then I'd come back and I'd tell everybody the movie. I loved telling stories. I loved making stories up. It just was part of my DNA. It was hard baked into who I was, and so it's like I had a love for it, and I had a love for reading, and I mean, it took me. I remember my mom my mother. I told her, "Oh yeah, I want to be a writer." Okay. And she looks at me, she goes, what makes you think you have anything to say that anybody needs to hear? Now, that's the kind of thing only a mother would say to you when you do it. It took me years to sort of figure out, okay, what is it? What's my objective here? It certainly isn't to make money, because it's really hard to make money as a writer. It was really the only way I could pay back the people who moved me and it's like, I can't come up to, Hemingway. I can't come up to Roald Dahl. I can't walk up to, Vonnegut and say, hey, thanks a lot, man. You had a huge impact on my growth and who I am. You contributed to who I am. Thank you very much. And it's a kind of a way of paying it forward. It's like, I want to basically pay this debt by writing things that move strangers like they did, and it's about it landing on eyeballs and having people, and you don't do it all the time. Sometimes most writing is here to there. It's just, you're basically moving a narrative along, but every once in a while you have those moments and you really nail it. And I had one of those in Blacklist, where I had, I don't know if anybody, here has watched the Blacklist, but it's like Red Reddington, the main character, is having this speech about suicide and about the impact and how destructive that is. And I got emails. I mean, I had emails from people who said, I was thinking about it. No, I don't, because of what you wrote.
Wow.
You go, okie dokie. I know that was good. Just when you start having this stuff go out, and it's positive. When I was early in my career, I wrote this. I was just trying to get published short stories and stuff, and I wrote this short story. And the only people who were publishing short stories then were like men's magazines. It was really weird. You get published in, Knockers Quarterly or something, these, they're really big on publishing fiction. Stephen King cut his teeth with some of these publications. And so I sent one to one of these publications, and I got back these notes, and it was like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, and you should do this. And yeah, it turned it into this really pervy, rapey thing. And everybody I knew said, well, how much are they going to pay you? I said, it's $800. They said, do it. And I said, I don't want to do it. Just do it under a pseudonym then. And I said, I don't want to put that out there. Because, 99 or 999 out of 100 men will read this and see it as, okay, well, this is just this, fantasy or whatever, sort of lurid fantasy. But there's always that one guy who goes, yeah, I want to do that. And it's like, I just don't want to ever. I was offered at MTV wanted to do a version of Dexter. And but it was teenage serial killer. And I said, I'll do it, but it needs to be a girl. Because if it's a girl, there aren't any girls that are gonna replicate that. You're not gonna see any copycat girl serial killers. This really becomes about empowerment, but I won't do it with a boy because there will be copycats. I just don't want to. I want to get through my career without somebody shoving a microphone in my face and saying, do you know you're responsible for these deaths or these suicides or these horrible things that happen by writing this stuff? It's like, why do I want to put that kind of negative stuff out into space? MTV, by the way, they said, a girl. I said, yeah. Well, is this a dealer? Is this a deal killer? And I said, yes, it is. And they said, bye. So,
Interesting.
Anyway, I don't know. I don't even know if I answered your question, but you got me started.
We love everything you say.
About choosing a director. Often you're not really choosing directors. You're working with a producer and you've got a list of directors that you're trying to attach that the networks are going to, suit the project, obviously, but are on the network's short list of people they want to work with. It's kind of a, catch as can, people who are, you can, even sometimes if you have a really big director, famous director that says, yeah, I want to do this. I want to be a directing EP and I want to do it can almost be a curse because they got a million other projects they're doing. And getting a TV show on the air is all about momentum. And if you got somebody who's dropping anchor because he's, doing, My Bloody Valentine 6 or something, it can be a real pain. What I really like are just seasoned television directors like Scott Wynant and David Nutter, and guys who really know how to get a lot of coverage in a very short period of time, which is what TV is all about. Good coverage,
Yeah. Great. Dave, do you have another question? Mike, Howard, Leanne, do you guys have any questions for Daniel?
Please, let's not keep these people who are watching waiting. You need to entertain them. Come on, guys.
That's right. Come on.
Just spit something out.
Okay, I'm only gonna do one question for Daniel.
Is it the same one question my mother asked me? Because
oh no, it's well. Okay, so the only question I wanted to ask was who's your biggest inspiration as a writer, or should I say inspirations as a writer?
I'm
sure it's
there's a lot of them. I really love Steinbeck.
Awesome.
And I really love Charles Bukowski. As far as dramatists go, John Milius was a big go-to for me. There's God. I could go on. As far as horror goes, I really like Clive Barker. And again, Richard Matheson, who to me is the most underrated writer ever. There's Something on the Wing. He wrote that. He wrote those Vincent Price's version of The Fall of the House of Usher. Rod Serling was a big influence on me as a dramatist.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah. But there's a lot more of them. It's a big melange.
Yeah.
So if I mix it up enough, I could pass it off as being original. I stand on the shoulders of at least a dozen or two giants. So.
Are you planning to write a Gingerland 2?
No, I'm not. This is one of the reasons why I used P.J. Hummel. Is P.J. Hummel wrote Gingerland and then he died. So that's it. That's it. This is the story. It's really weird. It's not very well known, but Charles Dickens had A Christmas Carol was an incredible success commercially. It was a huge commercial success. And the following year, he did another Christmas Story, and he did another one the following year, and nobody remembers those stories. He probably made some money on them. I'm like a guy at the blackjack table. It's like, I'm going to stand on this. This is my Christmas Story, and if somebody decides to, buy the film rights and do Gingerland 2 and Gingerland 3, I'll gladly rake in the licensing, but I probably won't have much to do with the creation of it.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Leanne, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, I had a question. Well, I had a comment and a question. So first of all, Ray Bradbury, I'm from Waukegan, Illinois, where Ray Bradbury is from. So we had Ray Bradbury Day and all that good stuff.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've got something so cool. I gotta dig it up. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to leave. Okay. Just
okay.
Okay.
Hopefully not
you're
for
going to want to
good.
see that.
Yeah, not for long.
Talk amongst yourselves.
I know. Talk amongst yourselves. Yes. So you guys have to read Gingerland. It's really a great
See
story.
this geode?
Let me see. What is that?
Oh,
Yeah.
A friend of
Oh,
mine bought that on
Cool.
on auction from the Ray Bradbury estate. This used to
Wow.
sit on Ray Bradbury's desk.
Wow.
whoa.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
very cool.
That is
That
so cool.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
I should sell some of this stuff on my desk. No,
Yeah, it's super cool.
that's very cool.
Yeah,
so
I
my
have a lot of
is-
weird stuff.
is there any actor out there today that you're like, oh, I would love to write and have them cast in one of my shows?
Dane DeHaan, is that his name? He's really wonderful actor. Dane DeHaan, I think is his name. He's pretty good. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is an amazing actor.
Mhm.
I think you know, as far as people I like to, I love watching John Malkovich.
Oh yeah.
You know, I could watch Malkovich
Yeah.
all day long. I'd love to work with him
Yeah.
someday. And Steve Carell.
Oh, he's so
Yeah.
good. I
Oh,
love
he's
him.
awesome.
Well, the weird thing about Steve Carell is he could have gone. He started out in sort of the. I got this. There was a cloying quality to his early work that reminded me of Robin Williams. It's like love me, love me, love me, and then he just evolved into this just amazing actor. And now he's. I mean, I'd love to work with him someday. But there's others that just don't spring to mind, you know. I mean, you could pitch a couple to me and I'll tell you whether I like them or not. Who's your favorite actor?
I don't know. There's so many, and I love though that you shared such an interesting group of actors, because I wouldn't have put them all in the same bucket, you know. So they're all very different.
Yeah.
That's
God, I'm trying to think. I'm just,
Oh, that's okay. I
Yeah.
have one other question.
It's late. It's late here. I'll watch this and I'll say, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that? Well, it looked like a moron, you idiot.
Oh, stop.
Is there time for one more, Grace?
What?
Is there
Yeah.
time for one more?
Definitely. Ask
my-
away.
My final question, like the final answer. This is my final question.
I'm going to
Is-
flip all
there-
the cards. Go ahead.
Is there a show out there now that you're like, oh, I wish I would have written that?
Well, I think Breaking Bad is something where I go, this is.
Oh,
I was prepared to hate that show, and I got sucked in.
Really?
Well, I thought, I just can't imagine making a hero out of somebody who is, ruining lives, and but Vince Gilligan, I should put that on my list of inspirations. He's really pretty amazing. But that's kind of creaky now. That's a ways back. I'm trying to think of what I watched. Oh, I watched something recently that was pretty good. I'm watching Fall of the House of Usher. Mike Flanagan is a really good. He's a great director, but he's kind of reminds me a little bit of Dean Koontz, in that he writes these amazing beginnings, these amazing middles, but there's this. At the end, you're just like, huh? It's like, there's this quality of, I've been spending too much writing this thing. I got to freaking wrap it up. It's like, I'm done with this. Stick a fork in it. I'm out. I mean, it's like me. I always start with the end, and I don't start writing at the end, but I know my end and I know what I'm writing to, and I'm not sure if that's the case with him, or whether he changes his mind, or whether he gets shitty notes from the network. That could be part of it. I mean, it could be a million things, but for some reason, from Oculus, from his film work to I'm really kind of hoping that Fall the House Usher, but they're always really super engaging and very. He's really good at subliminal horror and having things at the edge of the screen and instilling dread, which I think is that's the best kind of horror. Jump scares are just for morons. But those stories that really, like the Shining, just it's just ratcheting up. The Exorcist, most of Hitchcock's work is this slow process of putting pressure in and then slight releases through a little bit of humor and then applying more pressure and giving a release, and then it's amazing.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you, Leon. Anybody else have any questions? Dave, you have another question? You said you had a couple of questions.
I suppose I should have been should have been like more specific. Like, say for example, down you work with Jonathan Frakes, who's everybody knows him from Star Trek.
Jonathan was really fun. Yeah.
How did you discover him? How did you come across him for directing?
Well, I mean, again, we interviewed directors to direct the pilot, and Jonathan was one of them. And so he was on our radar from the very beginning with the astronauts, and he came out and he did a cameo for us, which was really fun and
nice.
And but he's really a good director. He was great with the kids, and he was just a ball to work with. He was so much joy, and those are the guys I kind of like to work with, are guys that take real joy in the process and are, I mean, obviously guys who are prepared and they, but I've worked with a few that are sort of taciturn, I mean, I won't name names, but they're still interesting to work with and watching their process, and I get to see it up close, and I go, oh, okay, well, I need another lifetime to do this really well, and so that's why I've never really chosen to direct. So I think the best thing is a really good writer collaborating with a really good director.
Absolutely. All right. Well, anybody, if you guys have any questions, then we've been we are almost at an hour. So
Yeah.
And you guys.
Another brilliant show.
Yeah. Yes.
Despite the guest.
Oh, God.
There's nothing more revolting than self-deprecation. Isn't it? It's so fake. I'm sorry I said that. I know I'm great. I'm a good guest.
Well, we all know. Yes.
So I'm not going to pretend I think I suck. Where's that going to get me? I don't know.
Right. But if people want to read Gingerland and subscribe to it, I'm sorry, I live near a police station. I don't know if you guys heard that.
A likely story.
Yeah, they're always.
Is your house on fire?
Not yet.
Okay.
They're coming for me, but that's why I have to wrap the show. But seriously, so where can people read? What is the it's Slack? What is it? Gingerland /Slack.
I'd have to look for the exact thing.
Hold on. Let me see. Let me see. I wrote it down. Oh, it's gingerland.substack.com.
Yes, that is it. And if you forget it, you can always go Gingerland book, and you'll find it near the top of the listings in pretty much all of your search engines. That happened without me doing any, anything, which I guess is sort of shocking. See, it says there's nobody out there writing stories that like featuring cookies. Yeah, you could go to Substack. There's a Gingerland Facebook page, a fan page. They could get it through that.
Right.
There's also my own page. And I'm doing a lot of promoting. if anybody out there is an influencer, anybody out there is, if anybody out there is got some followers, I don't, on this project, and it's all my other projects. I mean, I go to the studio and they got a big room and there's a big table and there's a whole team of publicists and marketers telling you, okay, here's all the stuff we're going to do for your show. And they're going to spend, like literally millions of dollars promoting your show. And so you have this machine behind you. And you see billboards on the sides of buildings and stuff like that. I don't have that on Gingerland. I'm really relying on grassroots. I really am relying on people reading it and loving it and saying, hey, you got to read this too. So, if you get a subscription, you read the whole thing and you like it, and, give a gift subscription or recommend it to your friends. And, you could sign up for free and read the first 14 chapters. And if you don't like those, you're certainly not going to like the rest of the book. So it's like a pretty heavy duty free sample,
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
It's a great read. You guys definitely subscribe because it's a fun read. And yeah, it really is. So thank you so much, Daniel, for doing the podcast for the 100th time.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate you.
You are prone to hyperbole, dear.
A little bit.
100 times. Good God. My ears are always sweating because I got these headphones on.
I know, right? Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to sort of promote this thing, because it's my favorite thing I've ever done. And if anybody is sort of like tapped into my body of work and they like it, they'll probably like this too. It's just it's a very different thing. You don't think Daniel Knauf, kids' Christmas story type thing.
Yeah.
But I really think it's something that once people read it, they'll go, "Hey, this is something I want to make part of my my holiday traditions." And there's a lot of good stuff. I just think I want to restore people's feelings. It's not even remote. It's not cynical,
Yeah. And also you guys can like and comment on the chapters. Do you read the comments?
All the time. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, I'm all over those things, man.
I did. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fun in between, also, like things that you write, that you wrote in between, I guess, writing the chapter, right? So
I have blog posts on there too about the writing of it, finding my, Zelda, finding my illustrator, and then about my Christmases and, just memories. And I would really encourage people, if they get really into it, to go ahead and submit their own, Christmas memories. And if they want to write a little story, I'll probably post it,
I love that.
I just want this to sort of build into like a community of people. I've also sort of discovered this big Facebook community of people who are like just Christmas pages. As like, there are people who just celebrate Christmas year round, and I go, that's just fantastic.
Your people.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Look, I even look like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for the questions too. Thank you. They were great. And thank you for the applause and the heart. I love Plausible with that feature is the best. And so I will see you guys next Love at First Laugh with a new guest. All right. And
it has been a pleasure, guys. Thanks so much for all the incisive questions.
Awesome. All right. And